All right, we're kicking off the 2022 NFL Draft Rankings top 10 list of tight ends. Starting at number 10, obviously, we got Cole Turner from Nevada. You can see his comp there. I've got Logan Thomas as a comp, who was a former quarterback, came into the NFL as a quarterback, so struggled in what I think Cole Turner will struggle with similarly, moving to the NFL level, blocking, that sort of a thing. Obviously, he's going to have to refine his route running a little bit. Air raid style offense at Nevada, so he's going to have to learn how to at least be responsible in the blocking game. That's kind of why I have him so low. There's a lot of guys in this draft class that are able to do the same or similar things as Cole Turner, just better, and then they're able to block better as well. So he's a former wide receiver. Obviously, he was never going to make it, especially at the NFL level as a wide receiver. He's 6'6", 246. He ran a 4.76 in the 40 at the combine. So obviously it was just, gain a few pounds, move over to tight end, get yourself on the field and have a shot to play at the next level. So good on him for making that decision and committing to that move. You can see his stats from the past 2 years as a starter: 49 catches, 605 and 9 touchdowns in 2020, and then 62 catches, 677 yards and double-digit touchdowns this past season with the Wolfpack. So good, good production there. But again, like I said, air raid style offense. He's going to have to learn how to be more responsible in the blocking game. Like I said, it's going to take him a few years, I think, to get acclimatized to the NFL level and learn at least how to chip and block a little better than he did in college. So there you go. There's number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Up next, number 9, we got Jake Ferguson out of the University of Wisconsin. Comp we have here, Jack Doyle, who just retired. So, if he can have a career anything like Jack Doyle, I think he'd be very, very happy. He had a great career, just retired, kind of an under-the-radar type of a guy, which is what I think Jake Ferguson will be as well. In his freshman year there, he only started 2 of those games, so he's pretty productive and pretty consistent throughout his college career. I think he can do a few things better than a guy like Cole Turner, who I just had at 10. I think he can block a little bit better. He's just a little more responsible there. He had a really good Senior Bowl. He actually had a game high 3 catches, 62 yards and a touchdown. So in a game like that where a lot of guys struggled to produce and to kind of show out, he looked great. He had a decent combine, ran a 4.81. He's 6'5". He can do a lot of things that I think will keep him in the league for a fair amount of time and keep him under the radar and just be one of those guys that you can kind of count on as a, backup tight end or number 2 tight end kind of a thing. And he can block and catch the ball as well. So a guy like Jack Doyle is kind of a perfect comp, I thought. Just because Jack Doyle was barely, a starter in the NFL. And I don't think Ferguson will be that either. I think he'll be similar and a guy that you can rely on and a really good kind of teammate, a really good team guy. So we'll see, but there you go. There's number 9, Jake Ferguson from Wisconsin. Up next, number 8, we got Iowa State tight end Charlie Kolar. Player comp I have for him is Tyler Higbee. I like that comp. It took Tyler Higbee a few years to get to where he's at now. Yeah, he's a quite good tight end, I think, right now, but it took him a few years to get there and a few years to develop into the player that he is now. The things about Kolar, there's a few things I like, there's a few things I don't like. The things that I like, the kid's from Norman, Oklahoma, grew up wanting to play for the Oklahoma Sooners. His parents are both professors at the school. It didn't happen, and he's carried that chip on his shoulder throughout his college career, and he's had some good games against the Sooners as well. So that's something that I like, is he's driven, he's got a chip on his shoulder, he's that kind of guy. To be honest, when I was watching tape on tight ends, I think Kolar was the first or second tight end that I watched tape on. So he started high in my rankings, and I thought he would stay there if I'm being honest, but he just kind of kept slipping as I saw more and more talent come up. I just wish he was a bit of a better blocker. And the interesting thing is he's quite a physical guy. On his routes, he kind of walks that line between pushing off and he's physical on his routes. He's always getting hands on guys. He's a former basketball player, so I think that's where he gets it from, rebounding type of thing. So he's quite physical, but he's not really in the blocking game, and that worries me a little bit. It doesn't particularly add up. It doesn't match up, if that makes sense. Production-wise, he was good. He was very, very solid his entire career. So he did redshirt, I believe, his freshman season, his true freshman season. 4-year starter after that, and he posted up quite good numbers. So you'd think just numbers-wise, he should be higher as well. I just couldn't move him up, mostly because of the blocking skills. And you gotta find ways to get on the field, and the ways that tight ends find a way onto the field at the NFL level is by blocking first, and the other things will come. There's not a ton of rookie tight ends that really produce in their rookie year at the NFL level. Kyle Pitts last year, Pat Freiermuth as well had really good years, but traditionally there's not a crazy amount of production there in rookie seasons for tight ends, and I think that's the same thing with Charlie Kolar. I do really like him, and I think he'll develop into a quality tight end. To be honest, there's a ton of tight end talent. All of these guys. I think all of these guys in the top 10 will all have reasonable careers at the NFL level, some more successful than others. So just for the player type that I see Charlie Kolar as, I think there's a few other tight ends that can do things similarly but better. And we'll kind of get there, and you could flip-flop 7 and 8, who you'll find out in a second. But there you go, number 8, Charlie Kolar from Iowa State. Number 7, we got Jeremy Ruckert from Ohio State. Player comp I have for him is Adam Trautman. Obviously, Adam Trautman, produced a little more at the college level as far as the stat line is concerned, but size and speed and skill level that I think Ruckert has the potential to be at. If you put him at Dayton, he probably would have done the same thing, which I'll get to about another guy as well. So I just think that watching tape with Ruckert, I can't discount him for this, for the box score, because of what I saw on tape. I trust my eyes more than I trust the box score, and he can block a little bit better than some of these other guys. Obviously, all the guys that he's ahead of in these rankings, I think he's a better blocker than that will get him onto the field sooner than those other guys. And, I might take some heat for putting him above a guy like Charlie Kolar, but I think he's, the better blocker. He'll be able to get on the field sooner, I believe, and I don't think that there's a difference between the two as far as production would be concerned. If you took Jeremy Ruckert and put him on Iowa State, and put Kolar on Ohio State, I think that they would be very, very similar. Look at the weapons that were on the Buckeyes throughout Ruckert's career there. Jamison Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't even play for this team. Harrison probably will be one of the guys this year, but Jamison Williams didn't even get on the field. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba. You're going to get those guys the ball before you throw it to Jeremy Ruckert. They really had to make a concerted effort to get Ruckert the ball, which they did, at a reasonable amount clip, considering, again, those other weapons that were on the field with him. So I'm not gonna take away from Jeremy Ruckert because the stat production isn't there. I trust my eyes more than I trust the box score. So there you go. It is what it is. I'm curious to what to see the 40 is going to be for him. Let me know what you think in the comments. This one might be a little spicy. But number 7, Jeremy Ruckert from Ohio State. Number 6, we got Jalen Wydermyer from Texas A&M. I think I'll take some heat on this one. A lot of guys have Wydermyer at the very least in their top 5, some in their top 3, some number 2. I just don't really see it there. Player comp, Will Disley. I think they're very similar, size and speed wise. And then, they both are going to have deficiencies in similar places, in my opinion, specifically, yards after the catch type of a thing. So let's dig into it. He just is not the most consistent blocker. He did improve throughout his college career, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's a bad blocker. I'm just saying he's a little inconsistent. And like I said, he did improve. He does have solid hands. He did have a tough time at the combine. Nerves can be there as well. So I'm not gonna write him off or hate on him for the combine jitters type of a thing. Because he has solid hands on tape. So I'm not gonna discount him for that, to be honest with you. But he's just not the most athletic guy around. At his pro day, he ran a over 540. It was like 504 or something like that. I think there was maybe something, wrong with the timers, maybe something, because everybody ran slow. Everybody ran slow at the A&M pro day. So it's still, even if you want to take a tenth of a second off that, he's still not the most fleet of foot, especially, for a tight end where I want them to be, 4.8 at least, to be honest with you, especially considering he's not the best blocker around. Production-wise, he was pretty good. You know, was fairly consistent throughout. You know, I'm not a big believer and a big fan of Jalen Wydermyer. I'm not. I just don't think he's going to force his way onto the field on too many teams. And then, you know, like I said, yards after the catch, I don't see him, you know, even putting up this kind of production that he put up in college at the NFL level. So we'll see, you know, if I take some heat, I take some heat. It's not my first rodeo, so I don't really care. Throw it in the comments. Let me know if what you think of that. But there it is, number 6, Jalen Wydermyer, Texas A&M. Coming in at number 5, I've got Jelani Woods from Virginia, former quarterback, high school quarterback. He was recruited at Oklahoma State to be a quarterback. Didn't work out, and he never actually, you know, really took any snaps or anything like that at quarterback. He moved directly to wide receiver. Didn't stay there either. He was, you know, he's way too big to be a wide receiver anyways. So, you know, let's go to the player comp. Cole Kmet is who I have there. I think Cole Kmet is a much better blocker than Jelani Woods. I mean, maybe not, to be honest with you. We'll see. I mean, he's not that great of a blocker, but he's willing. Like, he's trying, you know. I'll say that about Jelani Woods. It's not natural for him, that's for sure. But he does try, and he is a willing blocker. He's just, you know, he needs more coaching. And I think he'll get that at the NFL level, obviously. So I like the comp with Cole Kmet as far as the offensive production could be concerned, or hopefully is concerned. But we'll see about the blocking. And Cole Kmet's not the best blocker either. So there you go. Yeah, way too big to be a wide receiver. 6'7", 260, and he ran a 4.6. That's very, very, very impressive for me. I think with the right coaching and with the right fit, he could be an absolute monster fantasy football wise, and, you know, real life football wise, obviously, because those stats translate. So I think just looking at it on the surface without knowing landing spot, I think he could be a top 3 tight end in this class production wise. But we'll see where he lands. So I'm just a huge fan of what I saw on tape. And he really showed out at the East-West Shrine Bowl. Didn't get invited to the Senior Bowl. But that's all right. And the stat line in the 1 year playing tight end at Virginia, it's not like Virginia's some sort of powerhouse, you know, throw the ball, air raid type of an offense or anything like that. Basically 600 yards and 8 touchdowns. I think he can be an absolute red zone beast in the NFL level at that size and speed. You know, similar-ish to Donald Parham, but just, you know, more of a football player. He's played football his whole life, and I love the former quarterback aspect of it. I really, really like that. Look at Logan Thomas, you know, where he's at now. If he had made that switch in college, you never know. Logan Thomas might be one of the better tight ends ever, potentially. You know, he only had that really this one season, but he's a little bit older now. Another story for another day. But Jelani Woods, I really, really like. I think that this potentially is a conservative number, and we're getting to a point in the rankings now where, you know, they're not, you know, these guys aren't blocking specialists or anything like that. None of these guys in the rankings are blocking specialists. I'll tell you that. I didn't even have a single one of those types of players in my top 10. But he's better offensively than the guys listed before him, but maybe a worse blocker than some of those guys. But he can do more offensively, I believe. So we'll see. I'm really excited to see where he lands, and he's a guy that I would be looking at grabbing in rookie drafts super, super late in a deep league. So there you go. Number 5, Jelani Woods, from Virginia. Coming in at number 4, we got Greg Dulcich from UCLA. Player comp I have for him is Harrison Bryant. Again, another one of those guys who produced at quite a bit of a higher clip. He was a 1,000-yard receiver in college, but, you know, with less weapons, I think Dulcich could be up there as well. And, you know, 725 yards, 5 touchdowns, that's no slouch. Ran a good 4.69. He's 6'4", 250-ish. I can't remember his exact weight, but really liked what I saw on tape. Obviously, offensively, he's just fine. Lined up in the slot majority of the time, which a lot of these guys did, especially the next few, and Jelani Woods type of thing. The next few guys in these rankings, they mostly line up in the slot, which is where a lot of this tight end production is coming from, even at the NFL level. But at the same time, he's a bit of an underrated blocker. He's a little bit better than I think he would get credit for, or does get credit for. He's more than just a slot guy. I think he's capable. I think he's someone. I'm not saying you could rely on to block a defensive end or an outside linebacker at the NFL level, especially not as a rookie, but I think he's a little bit underrated and can get the job done, especially if he's chipping, that sort of a thing. I just think that I actually thought he was going to be a little bit higher, and I thought he might run a faster 40 because he was timed by Zebra Technologies as like definitely the fastest tight end at the Senior Bowl. I think it was like 20 point something miles per hour at the Senior Bowl. So I thought he would run a little bit quicker, but 4.69, there's nothing wrong with that at his stature. So I'm again, another guy I'm curious to see where he lands. Could develop into, one of the better tight ends in the game, I feel like, if given the right, landing spot, coaching opportunity, which is a big if, and it's a big ask. So it's really, I shouldn't even say that, but I quite like Greg Dulcich, not as much as Jelani Woods. Jelani Woods is probably my favorite tight end in this entire class, but I do like Greg Dulcich. So there you go. Number 4, Greg Dulcich from UCLA. Rounding out the top 3, we got Isaiah Likely from Coastal Carolina. Player comp, I've got David Njoku. I think Likely he's likely a better blocker than David Njoku, but very similar player types. Both big, athletic, fast, that sort of a thing. He didn't run a 40 yet. I think he probably will at the Coastal Carolina Pro Day. I would love to see that 40 time get into the 4.5s. I would really, really like to see that. I think that would keep him, right here and maybe boost him up some team's board depending on their offense type of a thing. Production wise, quality production, and was part of, I don't want to call it a resurgence, but like the, advancing of the Coastal Carolina program. Obviously, Grayson McCall is a big part of that, who's still there. But Isaiah Likely played a big role in getting that program going and getting bowl games, that sort of a thing, playing big time teams, sort of a thing, getting ranked. So yeah, looking at the stat line, he had a fantastic senior year. 12 touchdowns, 900 yards. Again, that 40 time is a big thing. I thought he did a good job on tape of, he's a willing blocker, but he did a good job of getting to the second level and blocking for running backs, on swings and bubble screens, stuff like that. So he did a good job of selling either, he as a blocker and then running a route, or selling a route, getting to the second level and then becoming a blocker there. So I really liked that. I thought he did the best job of that. Out of this tight end class. Not necessarily that means he's the best blocker. I just thought he did a good job of selling, one or the other and then becoming one or the other. He's got good versatility as well. He lined up as an H-back, hand in the dirt, outside as a X wide receiver type of a thing. I'm really excited to see where he lands. I would love to see him go and play for the Giants and Mike Kafka. I think that's a great fit. They need tight ends. I think that would be fantastic fantasy-wise and, real-life stats-wise. Obviously, they go hand in hand. So there you go, rounding out the top 3, Isaiah Likely from Coastal Carolina. Number 2 tight end, I've got Cade Otton from Washington, which is quickly becoming, TEU sort of a thing. There's a lot of quality tight ends coming out of Washington these days. Player comp I've got for him, Dalton Schultz, who is a fantastic tight end right now for the Dallas Cowboys, obviously, who had, it's more than just size and speed and player type of a comp. It's also, he had similar production in college. He didn't light up the box score, much like Cade Otton didn't either. So I think that he could develop into that type of a player, maybe a little quicker, depends on, again, landing spot. All of this depends on landing spot. for all of these guys, and they will likely change after the draft once I know where they're going. But I think that's a very good comp in my opinion. I really like Cade Otton. I think he's going to just be a guy that gets onto the field because he can block, he can do it all, sort of a thing. A lot of the guys that went, Jelani Woods, Greg Dulcich, Isaiah Likely, especially guys like that, they're more slot type of tight end. They're not a hand in the dirt. They're not very good blockers. And Cade Otton and then the number one guy, who should be pretty obvious who it is right now, they're both very good blockers, and they can do it all. They can catch the ball as well. Washington is not an offensive powerhouse at all. So realistically, he had a better season his junior year, his true junior year, in only 4 games, 258 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then, regression came as the team was not very good. 250 yards and a touchdown last year. But the tape doesn't lie with this guy, in my opinion. That's just how I feel about it. I think he's going to be the number 2 guy drafted, and we'll see how it shakes out. Again, it's going to depend on where he goes and how they're going to use him, but he can be a 3-down tight end. He's not just a pass catcher. He's not just a blocker. He can kind of do it all. So I really like Cade Otton. I think he's obviously the number 2 guy, and he could be just as good as the number 1 guy. It's just the stat line was there for him, so we'll get there in a second. But there you go. Number 2 tight end in my 2022 NFL draft rankings is Washington's tight end Cade Otton. Sure, it was probably pretty obvious by now who was my number 1, but I'm not going against, consensus or whatever. I'm not trying to be contrarian. I'm not trying to be different. Trey McBride is the best tight end in this class, and it's not particularly close for me. It's close on who's a better blocker between him and Cade Otton, in my opinion, but it's fine. That's not an issue. Offensively, I think he's the best guy, especially considering he had pretty poor quarterback play in college, and he's still, 1,121 yards, 90 catches. That 1 touchdown is, it's an outlier in my opinion. I think that, watching tape, there was about 3 or 4 touchdowns that should have been for Trey McBride, so that would have added more yards, more touchdowns, more catches, all that kind of stuff. So realistically, his stat line was kind of suppressed by his poor quarterback play. Plus, he blocked quite a bit. He's a very, very capable blocker. He might be the best, him or Cade Otton, best blockers in this class outside of those pure blocking specialists that, I don't have in my top 10 rankings. So comp I have for him is Pat Freiermuth, who came out last year, had a very good rookie season. I think with the right fit, I think Trey McBride could have a similar type of he's not going to go out there and do what Kyle Pitts did, but he could absolutely have a similar rookie year to a Pat Freiermuth, who's an underrated season considering, again, Kyle Pitts. Looking at that stat line, there's no need to overthink this, in my opinion. There's no need to try to poke holes in Trey McBride's game. Like I said, most likely the best blocker, at least, of the offensive weapons, whether they're linked to the offense or not. He's not a blocking specialist, obviously, but he can absolutely do all those things. So there you go. That's just what it is. There's no reason to overthink this. I think it's just cut and dry. He is the best tight end in this class, and then everyone else is a step below. I think that's the tier, and then that's it. Tier 1, Trey McBride. Tier 2, however else you want to rank it, but obviously you can see how I did. So there you go. That's it. That's the top 10 for the 2022 NFL draft for tight ends. You got number 1, Trey McBride from Colorado State.